All right, now before you go on a road trip, the first thing you need is a car. Okay, so here it says, Jackson purchased a slightly used 1903 Winton touring car and named it the Vermont after his home state. So Vermont is a state in the U.S. That's where he lived now.
It's up in the northeast.
Yeah.
So, but he's in San Francisco, so southwest.
Right.
But Vermont remember he was born in Canada, but I guess his parents are from Vermont. That's maybe where he went to grow up.
Right.
So he considers that's my home state.
Right. Okay. So what he did is he purchased a car. Now, purchase is a verb. It's another word to say buy. Now, when you purchase something, you buy something. Now, purchase can also be used as a noun where it means the thing you buy.
Okay, now this car wasn't new straight off, Mr. Ford's production line or whatever. It was slightly used.
Right.
Slightly means just a little bit, not to a great extent. Now, when we talk about a used car, this is one that somebody else has already owned and driven. It's not new. This one is only slightly used, so it hadn't been driven much. Maybe it's gone, maybe a few dozen miles, but that's it, just to check it does actually work and it won't break down on its first try. So he gets this car, it's in fairly good condition, and off they go.
Okay, well, they're going to start out here on their road trip. It says on May 23rd, 1903, he said goodbye to his wife and left San Francisco in the Vermont with Crocker and many necessities. Okay, so they're both in the car, they've got this car, they're starting their road trip, and what they have with them is necessities. Now, a necessity is something you need to have to live. So food, water, clothing, and shelter are all the basic necessities. Without these, we might get sick, we might die, so we need to have them. Now, a necessity on a road trip would be food. You need lots of food to eat. You need gas, just in case there are no gas stations to make your car run. You need tools to make sure you can fix your car. You might need spare tires, just in case one of your tires stops working, and other car parts like this. So, a necessity for a road trip today, good music, some snacks, some comfy clothes to sit in, that sort of thing. Now here's an example. If you take public transportation every day, an Easy Card is a necessity.
That is absolutely true. I mean, you can buy the one-time tickets or put money in the bus machines, but you're going to lose money because it's always more expensive doing that.
It just takes so much more time to wait in line, to buy tickets.
Okay, so they start off. What an adventure, what a great time, but only 15 miles into the adventure, so they've barely gotten out of San Francisco, one of the car's tires burst. There we go. We could have expected something like that. Okay, now here we use the word adventure. An adventure is an unusual, exciting, and often daring experience that generally involves trying something new. Now, we often use it to talk about traveling in some way or at least going somewhere new and not having any idea of how things will turn out. We could also talk about like food adventures, like eating some completely new food, trying to cook completely new food. So anything really where it's new and you're not sure about the outcome, we can call that an adventure.
Oh, I went on a food adventure in Japan last year.
That's pretty cool.
My friend wanted to see some stuff, but I was just more worried about where and what we were going to eat.
You must be pretty much Taiwanese by now then.
Yes.
Okay, here's an example sentence for adventure. Bilbo Baggins went on an adventure with Gandalf the Wizard and 13 dwarves.
That sounds fun.
And you can learn about it in the movie and the book, The Hobbit.
Yeah, I already have. It's great. All right, so they're on this adventure and their tire bursts. That means it pops open, stops. They can't use it anymore. So here it says, Jackson and Crocker replaced it with the only appropriate spare tire in San Francisco. There's only one of them.
There's just one. That's the only tire we can use.
Right. Now we use the adjective appropriate to describe the tire. Here, appropriate means correct or suitable for the particular situation. Now, the Vermont probably only worked with one specific tire, which at the time might not have been very easy to find, as we can see. Now, in that case, another type of tire might not have fit on the car, it might not have been strong enough for the roads, that sort of thing. Okay, here's another example. Jeans and t-shirts are not appropriate clothes to wear for a job interview at a bank.
Well, that explains why I didn't get the job.
Okay.
Okay, so they needed their tire burst. It maybe went over some broken glass or a sharp rock, or maybe it just had too much air in it and it just went pop. That can happen. So they needed a spare tire. So we use this adjective spare for something that's not currently in use, but it's available for use when needed. So a spare tire is one for a car that isn't actually on the road, touching the road, but it's maybe in the trunk or somewhere else. I think in the old days they just had them on the side, and you can use that tire in case you get a flat. Okay, as happened here. We could also use this word spare to talk about spare time. For example, when you're not doing anything, the necessary things like working or studying or sleeping. Your spare time is time that is not being used for anything in particular, so you can use it to do whatever you want. Here's another example with spare. My brother has a spare room at his house, so I stay with him whenever I visit the city where he works.
Okay. Well, Jackson and Crocker were very lucky. They did find a spare tire and they were able to put it on their car and keep going. Here it says, they then set out north along the Oregon Trail to avoid both the Rocky Mountains and the deserts of Utah and Nevada. Okay, so what they did is they set out. Now, this is another phrasal verb that is similar to head out or head off. When you set out somewhere, you begin a journey, especially if it's a long one. Okay, as an example, we could say on April 10th, 1912, the RMS Titanic set out for its first journey from Southampton to New York. Unfortunately, it was also its last.
Oh, well, never mind. Okay, so they set out on the Oregon Trail. Now, a trail is a beaten path through the countryside. It's not like an actual road that's been made. It's just been used a lot. Could be by people or by animals, that just kind of makes it into a sort of natural road you can use. Now, sometimes they can be very narrow. You know, only one person at a time can use it. But from what I understand, the Oregon Trail had been used a lot by wagons and groups of people in the past, either heading west or south, because Oregon is just above California on the west coast. And therefore, this trail is going to be a lot wider, it's going to be a lot more beaten down and easier to use. A mountain range might have many hiking trails going over it or around it. Think of like Elephant Mountain here in Taipei. Here's an example sentence for trail. If we keep following this trail, we'll reach the top of the mountains in about 2 hours.
Okay.
So mountains were a problem for them. They wanted to avoid the Rocky Mountains.
They did. The Rocky Mountains are actually some of the biggest mountains in North America. Or actually, I think, yeah, I'm not sure about the heights of the mountains, but it would have been too much for their car. The mountain roads, they probably weren't built up by that point.
No, not really.
Not enough for a car, at least. And if they're bursting tires 15 miles out of San Francisco, probably not a good idea. And they were also avoiding the deserts.
Yes.
Now, one thing, even today, about the deserts in the U.S.
Yeah, we had Utah and Nevada, which are just to the east. They've got Oregon and California on the west coast, so these are kind of the next 2 states in.
Right. There isn't a lot there, even now. And so there might have been, even today, like you might be able to stop in every 50 kilometers. There might be a small gas station. Maybe you can get some food, sort of thing.
Stay a night.
But back then, nobody would have been there. Maybe some Aboriginal tribes, but...
Yeah, or sort of very old kind of frontier villages from the gold rush days and stuff like that.
Too risky. So what they did is they went north first and then they cut across to go east. Now, what happened on the trip? Let's find out. It says Jackson lost several pairs of glasses and they blew more tires on rocky roads.
So tires I can understand, that's a problem. But the idea of these glasses, I like to think he was driving along in the wind and he turned his head and they blew off.
I think that's probably what happened.
Please let it be what happened.
Yeah. Okay, so let's learn about this tire. We say when a tire blows, it gets a hole in it and loses all its air. Sometimes, especially on big trucks, a tire blowing can mean that the tire explodes. It doesn't just like have one small hole and go flat. It just means it pops and bursts. Now, this is caused when the tire is old and is experiencing long trips, high heats, and heavy loads, which put too much pressure on it. Now, we can use it as a noun. We can also say a blowout. And like breakdown, it's all one word.
Okay, so they've gone north and sort of into Oregon, and now they turn east again. And this is what happens in Idaho, which is another sort of northwestern state that, to be honest, I know nothing about, except that it's kind of a potatoes. It's got potatoes. But in Idaho, Jackson and Crocker got a pit bull named Bud. So a pit bull is a type of dog, and these dogs have kind of square-shaped heads and bulky, kind of strong, muscled bodies. There is actually a breed of dog called an American Pit Bull Terrier, but other similar breeds of dog and mixed breeds can also be called pit bulls. And the name pit bull comes from the days, sadly, when people made dogs fight bulls in a pit. Now, happily, that is now super illegal, so those dogs don't have to do that sort of thing anymore, but the name has survived.
Yes. Okay, so here's what's going to happen for the poor dog.
Bud.
He's in this car and dust from the road stung Bud's eyes. So they gave him a pair of goggles to wear.
So cool.
Yes.
Dog with driving goggles.
Right. Okay, so what's happening is the dust is stinging the dog's eyes. Sting is a verb, and when something stings, it has or creates a pain or an uncomfortable feeling. Now, think about if you've got something in your eye, maybe it's windy and something has gone into your eye, it hurts. It doesn't feel good, right?
Or a cut on your finger that you then get salted, like seawater in a cut, that's gonna sting.
It does not hurt, it stings. Now here's an example. The smoke from the campfire stung Annabelle's eyes, so she moved back from it.
Yeah, now to protect the dog's eyes, they gave it goggles. Goggles are a device for covering and protecting someone's eyes. Now they often cover all around the eyes, more so than regular glasses, so stuff can't get in. People might wear goggles when swimming to keep the water out of our eyes. Or maybe they would wear goggles when they go into a science lab and they need to protect their eyes from, could be chemicals, could be other things like that. They might wear them in a factory. Now, like glasses, spectacles, sunglasses, and things like that, the word is always used as a plural.
Right. Okay, well, here in the article it says, the trio made headlines, but more tough times were ahead. Of course, we knew this wasn't going to be easy. So let's find out what happened for this trio. First, a trio is a group of 3 people or things. Now, 2 people or things is called a duo, and 3 people or things is called a trio.
Okay, so we've got Jackson, Crocker, and the dog. We see Jackson lost his coat and all their money with it, and his glasses. They got lost, didn't have enough food, and of course the car broke down. All of these problems.
Okay, well, those are all big problems. Somehow, though, they still kept going. And here it says, still, once they reached Nebraska, they found paved roads, and on July 26, 1903, they rolled into New York City.
Okay, Nebraska's kind of basically in the middle.
I think so, yeah. Okay. I don't know exactly, but wherever it is, they found paved roads, so that means it was no longer dirt roads. They had tar on the ground. Easier on the car, easier to drive on.
Okay, and so the article finishes by saying the trio proved that cars weren't just toys and helped to bring about the automobile age. So the phrasal verb bring about means to cause something to begin or cause something to happen. People saw that cars worked, more people got them, it becomes a big news story, their popularity starts, so they're bringing about this car age we live in now. That's the right at the end of the article, so we're now going to go for today's For You Chat question.